25 years ago today, the episode The Cape and Cowl Conspiracy aired for Batman the Animated Series, October 14th, 1992. Hello friends, welcome back to the show if you have been here before, and if you're new here, then welcome just the same. I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, and especially if you're a huge Batman fan like me and grew up with Batman the Animated Series, well then this is the channel for you, because we're breaking down each and every episode on their original air date. So you don't want to miss one.
Hear new instructions you will find.
You've come to the right place, Mr. McWhirter.
So today we're talking about the Cape and Cowl Conspiracy, the first appearance of the Riddler. I mean, Wormwood.
Who the devil are you?
This is an interesting episode. It's got a great story. It's got some interesting moments, some great surprises, but I'm not sure if it quite holds up like some of the other episodes in the series. And we'll talk about that right after we do our 45-second rundown. There's a lot that happens in this episode, so I'm fairly confident I will not succeed. We open on a mysterious mystery mini golf course as a guy was walking through, and he starts hearing a voice that had called him there, that he's in the right spot, and he starts sinking in quicksand, and he has to give up the delivery point or the access codes for the the barrier bonds that they have. Then we see Batman and Commissioner Gordon talking about this, and they deduce that it has to be none other than Wormwood, the interrogator, and they know that he's also working with the Baron, so they go to the Baron to see if he's in town and what's going on with this, and he tells the Baron to leave, and then the Baron hires Wormwood to go and get Batman's cape and cowl. As Wormwood comes up with these different devices, both a train and a melting of the wax, then Batman gives up his cape and cowl. The Wormwood goes there and finally asks him, well, why did you need the cape and cowl? Cape and cowl? I don't have time for that. Cape and cowl. And then he says, well, what did you want to do with that? And the Baron puts it on and says to wear them, and turns out he's Batman, and he stops him and puts him in jail. I knew it.
No hurry, I'll wait.
This is a really interesting episode. It's got a great mystery. You don't know until the very end that Batman hasn't been impersonating the Baron. Oh, spoiler alert if you haven't watched this. But side question, what is the appropriate time to wait before you don't need to say spoiler alert anymore? I mean, I'm assuming 25 years. If you haven't seen the episodes by now, that it doesn't matter a lot. 10 years? 5 years? A year?
I don't know what you're talking about.
There's some very clever devices that Wormwood comes up with to try to get Batman to give up the cape and cowl. And the Batman stopped the first one.
15 seconds.
Help! Please, help!
So there's some definite highlights in this episode. But I say that I don't think that it held up real well for a couple of reasons. One is, once you know the mystery, so when I sat down to watch the episode today, I remembered that Batman was the Baron. So in that regards, the mystery side of this doesn't hold up. And the other part that doesn't hold up real well is
Wormwood, the interrogator.
I don't understand why he's not the Riddler. As far as I can tell, this was a character that was created for the show. If you've noticed, in production order, we have still yet to see the Riddler. In fact, has the Riddler been in... One moment. Go to my list here. Just as I suspected. The Riddler hasn't even been in an episode produced yet. It raises a question. I don't know what the reason was that they were avoiding using the Riddler. This guy is so close to the Riddler, both in that he writes riddles to entice Batman to come after him.
Where iron horses go to rot, and children toot their horns a lot, a damsel's pleas shall come to naught.
And that he uses these clever mechanisms and these clever traps, mind game sort of things, to get what he wants.
Now, if I might call your attention to the panel sliding open along the ceiling. It's uncovering a 20,000-watt halogen bulb.
Why isn't it the Riddler? He even looks kind of like the Riddler. So I honestly don't know if it was an issue where they couldn't get the rights to the Riddler or they were doing something in the comics. I know in the cinematic world after Batman Returns, they had always intended on doing the Riddler next. So maybe they thought they were going to do it sooner than later. So maybe they were saying, hey, hold off on using him in the animated series because we want to have a new spike in the movies. And like they did with the Penguin, they wanted the animation of the Penguin to mirror him in the movies. So maybe they wanted to, I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but this episode makes it very obvious that they deliberately were not using the Riddler, because you could have easily plucked the Riddler into this character of Wormwood, and I think it would have made it just more interesting.
Humble the legendary Batman? I must admit it is an intriguing challenge.
The one factor that helps this episode out is that it is a really inventive story. Even though I knew what the mystery was, it's very clever and it's very misleading how there's one line that Batman says to tell the Baron to leave town, and then we see him again, and it could easily be deduced that the Baron wants the cape and cowl because he was upset with Batman for crashing his party and for hanging him by his suspenders. So it's easy to say that he would have wanted this to humiliate him. So it's a great plot device to be misleading in that.
You take a vacation somewhere far away from Gotham City.
So just a few other highlights of this episode. Oswald, can you not scratch on that right now? One is, this is the first appearance of the bat signal in the animated series.
Got a new toy, I see.
Which I think is neat, that there's just all these different elements that they've rolled out over time. They didn't hit the ground running with all of it right up front. The other thing that we haven't touched on too much on this episode is the relationship between Commissioner Gordon and Batman, which I don't know why. I've just always enjoyed that relationship, how Commissioner Gordon is a really good cop. And I think he's written as a very strong character, but they have a great partnership where they exchange information. And this episode, I think, showcases their relationship really well. Familiarness of their relationship, that Batman's able to kind of tease Commissioner Gordon a little bit about the riddles.
You know what it means?
Don't you?
And the other thing is, the one part that I did forget about was that once Batman revealed himself to be the Baron and put on the cape and cowl and demands the key from Wormwood, Wormwood does okay in a fight. And he's got some guts to keep going after. Even once he gets knocked down, he keeps going after Batman. So I got to give the guy some credit that he does have a little bit of guts. So as it comes time to rank this episode, again, it was kind of weird for me because I remember really enjoying this episode as a kid. So it has a high nostalgic factor. But at the same time, watching it today, it didn't hold up as well as I would have hoped it to. I don't think it's a bad episode. I was still very entertained with it. I wasn't bored by it. There was enough that kept the story moving and enough elements beyond the mystery that sustained the story. But I'm just very disappointed that it's not the Riddler. And I just don't understand that. So when I was looking at the list, it kind of fell sort of in the low middle at the number 14 slot, which is kind of a weird sandwich because I had to put it above The Last Laugh because this story was just better than The Last Laugh. But it still fell below Be a Clown because that story is kind of interesting on a smaller level and has a great performance of Mark Hamill as the Joker.
Confinement will speed your reform, but long cold nights will be the norm. So here is a thing to keep you warm. Well.
So the question for you below is why do you think that they haven't used the Riddler yet? And particularly in this episode, why is Wormwood not the Riddler? Let me know in the comments below if you think that the Riddler should have been in this episode.
I want information from you.
So once again, it's time for that little break in the production schedule. So I won't be back with a review of the animated series until next Thursday, the 19th, with Perchance to Dream. But you know me, I always like to sneak in extra bonus episodes that hopefully you'll enjoy just the same. It's always fun having new people subscribe to the channel and watching the videos. So thank you for those that have been sharing this with your friends. That's all I have for today. Thanks again. I will see you next Thursday.